Imagine waking up tomorrow morning to find that the stock market has collapsed, the grocery store shelves are empty, and your currency has lost 50% of its value overnight. For most of us, this sounds like a dystopian nightmare or a scene from a movie. But for the ancient world, this was a terrifying reality. We often look at history through the lens of mythology, but today, we are going to look at it through the lens of economics. We are going to deconstruct the life of a man who did just survive the greatest global depression in ancient history. He leveraged it to become the most powerful CEO on the planet. His name was Joseph. Most people know him for his coat of many colors or the dramatic betrayal by his brothers. But if you stop there, you miss the wealth code. Joseph was the first recorded asset manager in human history to successfully navigate a 14-year economic supercycle. He took a nation that was on the brink of starvation and turned it into the bank of the world, while neighboring nations were selling their land and their freedom just to buy bread. Egypt was acquiring almost all the money in the known world. How? Because they had a plan when everyone else had panic. Today we are initiating the Joseph Protocol. We are going to strip away the Sunday school simplicity and look at the raw, hard financial strategies that Joseph used to build massive wealth during a crisis. If you are worried about inflation, looming recession, or the instability of the modern job market, this is the most important masterclass you will ever hear, because the economy of 2024 operates on the exact same principles as the economy of ancient Egypt. The technology has changed, but human nature and the cycles of greed and fear remained exactly the same. To understand the magnitude of Joseph's achievement, we must first understand the environment. Egypt was the superpower of the ancient world. It was the United States, China, and the European Union combined. Their economy depended entirely on one variable, the Nile River. When the Nile flooded, the harvest was abundant and the stock market was up. When the Nile failed, the economy crashed. It was a volatile system. The story begins with a nightmare. Pharaoh, the god king of Egypt, has a dream that terrifies him. He sees 7 fat, healthy cows grazing by the river. And then, he sees 7 ugly, gaunt, emaciated cows come up out of the water and devour the healthy ones. He wakes up sweating. He falls asleep again and sees 7 heads of healthy grain being swallowed by 7 withered, scorched heads of grain. Now, pause. Pharaoh had magicians, wise men, and advisors the equivalent of the Federal Reserve and the top economists of Harvard. None of them could interpret the dream. Why? Because they were looking for a spiritual meaning, or perhaps they were afraid to tell the king the truth about the market. They were yes men. They were looking at the current data. The Nile is high, the economy is good, and ignoring the leading indicators of the crash to come. This is exactly what happens today. When the market is booming, financial experts go on TV and say, the good times are here to stay. Buy, consume. They are blind to the cycle. But Joseph was different. When he was brought out of the dungeon to interpret the dream, he didn't sugarcoat it. He gave Pharaoh an economic forecast that would make a modern CFO tremble. He said, the 7 good cows are 7 years, and the 7 good ears are 7 years, and the 7 thin and ill-favored kine that came up after them are 7 years. Behold, there come 7 years of great plenty throughout all the land of Egypt, and there shall arise after them 7 years of famine, and all the plenty shall be forgotten in the land of Egypt. Joseph identified the supercycle. He understood that the economy breathes. Inhale expansion, exhale contraction, bull market, bear market. He realized that the fat years were not a permanent state. They were a preparation window. The tragedy of the lean years is not that they happen. Famine and recession are inevitable in a fallen world. The tragedy is that the lean years usually catch us with our pants down because we consumed everything during the fat years. Think about your own life. Think about the years where you had the good job, the bonuses, the low interest rates. Did you treat those years as a blessing to be consumed, or as a capital to be deployed? Did you buy the bigger house and the newer car, eating the fat cows, or did you build a storehouse? Joseph's genius was not just in predicting the rain, it was in building the ark. But here is the catch. Joseph wasn't even in a position of power when he figured this out. He was a convict, he was a slave. He had 0 assets, 0 network, and a criminal record for a crime he didn't commit. This destroys your excuse. You might be thinking, I can't save money, I don't make enough, or I'll start investing when I get a raise. Joseph started his mental preparation in a dungeon. He developed the manager mindset before he had a dime to manage. As we move into this series, we are going to break down exactly how he executed this plan. It wasn't magic. It was a specific mathematical formula, the law of the fifth 20%. We are going to look at his taxation strategy, his storage logistics, and how he negotiated with the desperate masses without losing his soul. But before Joseph could manage the grain of Egypt, he had to manage the prison of his own mind. Most people never reach the palace because they die in the pit of bitterness. Joseph's first financial victory wasn't over Pharaoh's budget. It was over his own victim mentality. If you want to be trusted with millions, you first have to pass the test of the pit. In the next section, we are going to explore the mindset of the vizier. We will uncover how Joseph transitioned from a prisoner to the second most powerful man on earth in a single day, and the specific character traits that made Pharaoh hand him the keys to the entire economy. It turns out, your soft skills and your spiritual alignment are the ultimate leverage in a hard economy. Prepare yourself, because we are about to leave the dream and enter the boardroom. Welcome back to the Joseph Protocol. In the previous section, we established the terrifying reality of the economic supercycle. The fat years are always, without exception, followed by the lean years. Joseph saw the crash coming when everyone else was partying, but seeing the crash is only 10% of the battle. The other 90% is having the character, the position, and the authority to do something about it. Many people read the story of Genesis and see Joseph's promotion as a miracle. One day he is a prisoner in a dungeon, shaving his face with a dull blade, and an hour later he is the Prime Minister of Egypt, riding in the second chariot with a gold chain around his neck. It looks like the ultimate overnight success. It looks like winning the lottery. But in the world of high-performance wealth building, there is no such thing as an overnight success. That overnight victory was 13 years in the making. We need to talk about the pit. Before Joseph managed the wealth of a nation, he had to manage the despair of a prison. This is principle number 2, the law of stewardship in obscurity. Most people say, God, give me the millions, and then I will be responsible. Give me the position of CEO, and then I will work hard. Joseph flipped the script. He worked hard when the reward was zero. The scripture tells us a fascinating detail about his time in prison. It says the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's hand all the prisoners that were in the prison. Think about that. He was an inmate. He wasn't on the payroll. He didn't have a title, but he acted with such excellence, such administrative precision, that the actual warden essentially retired and let Joseph run the facility. He became the CEO of the dungeon. This is the manager mindset that separates the wealthy from the wannabes. Joseph didn't wait for the title to start leading. He solved problems in the environment he was placed in. In the modern corporate world, we call this entrepreneurship. If you cannot manage a $1,000 budget with integrity, you will be crushed by a $1 million budget. If you are lazy at your minimum wage job, you will be lazy when you own the company. The dungeon was Joseph's SMB program. It was where he learned logistics, people management, and conflict resolution. He wasn't rotting, he was training. Now let's fast forward to the boardroom meeting with Pharaoh. This is the moment that changed history. Joseph interprets the dream's 7 years of boom, 7 years of bust. But then, he does something that was not asked of him. He stops being a prophet and starts being a consultant. He says to Pharaoh, "Now therefore let Pharaoh look out a man discreet and wise, and set him over the land of Egypt." He proposes a solution. He outlines a 14-year national savings plan. He creates a value proposition. Most people are problem spotters. They look at the economy and say, inflation is high, gas is expensive, the government is corrupt. Anyone can spot a problem. The market pays you for solving them. Joseph became the most valuable man in Egypt because he was the only one offering a roadmap out of the crisis. And look at Pharaoh's reaction. This is critical for anyone wanting to do business in the secular world. Pharaoh was a pagan king. He worshipped the sun, the Nile, and himself. He didn't care about Hebrew theology, but when he heard Joseph's plan, he turned to his servants and said, "Can we find such a one as this is? A man in whom the Spirit of God is." Pharaoh recognized the Spirit of God not because Joseph was preaching a sermon, but because Joseph was demonstrating supernatural competence. In the marketplace, your competence is your witness. Your excellence is your ministry. Pharaoh trusted Joseph with the entire GDP of Egypt because he sensed an alignment, a clarity, and a wisdom that simply didn't exist in his own magicians. In modern terms, Joseph possessed high trust capital. Trust is the ultimate currency. Speed happens at the speed of trust. Because Pharaoh trusted Joseph's character completely, he handed him the signet ring. That ring was the ancient equivalent of the frantic unlimited credit card. It meant Joseph could sign checks in the king's name. So, before we get into the math of the grain storage in the next section, you have to ask yourself, are you trustworthy? Are you managing your current prison, your debt, your small job, your small apartment with the excellence of a vizier? Are you offering solutions to your boss, or just complaints? Joseph's promotion wasn't luck. It was the inevitable result of preparation meeting opportunity. He was ready, but now that he has the power, now that he has the ring and the robe, he faces the monumental task of actually executing the plan. It's one thing to say save grain. It's another thing to build the infrastructure to feed millions of people for 7 years without bankrupting the state or causing a revolt. In the next block, we're going to crack open the specific economic policy Joseph implemented. We call it the rule of the fifth. It is a mathematical formula for savings and taxation that creates a buffer against any disaster. We are going to look at how he centralized the wealth and the brutal discipline required to say no to consumption when the shelves were overflowing. Prepare your calculators, because we are getting into the mechanics of the Joseph Protocol. Welcome back to the masterclass. We have covered the vision and the mindset. Now we must talk about the mechanics. How do you actually save a nation or a family from total financial collapse? Joseph didn't use magic beans. He used math. Specifically, he used a ratio that economists still debate today. We call this the rule of the fifth. In Genesis 41, Joseph outlines his policy: let them gather all the food of those good years that come, and let them keep food in the cities. The specific instruction was to take up 1/5, that is 20% of the land of Egypt during the 7 plenteous years. Now, 20% might sound like a random number, but it is the golden ratio of wealth accumulation. It is aggressive enough to build a massive fortune, but sustainable enough not to starve the current operation. Most financial advisors today will tell you to save 10% of your income. Joseph would tell you that 10% is for survival, 20% is for dominance. Think about the psychology of the fat years. For 7 years, the Nile overflowed. Crops were breaking records. In an agricultural economy, this was like a massive tech boom. Everyone was making money. The natural human tendency in a boom is lifestyle creep. When you make more, you spend more. You buy the bigger chariots. You throw the bigger feast. You upgrade your tunic. The Egyptians were partying. They thought the good times would last forever. But Joseph stood in the middle of this party with a clipboard and a stopwatch. He enforced a strict discipline of delayed gratification. While the average citizen was consuming 100% of their harvest, Joseph was confiscating and storing 20% of the gross national product. This required massive logistics. He didn't just pile grain in the open, he built infrastructure. He built storehouses in the cities. This teaches us a critical lesson. You cannot save what you cannot store. In modern terms, you need a vessel for your wealth. If you just leave your savings in a checking account under the mattress, inflation eats it. Joseph built granaries, specialized secure environments to protect the asset. Today your granary might be a high-yield savings account, a brokerage account, a Roth IRA, or physical gold in a vault. You must build the system * before * the harvest comes. But here is the brilliance of the strategy. Joseph centralized the supply. He understood the law of supply and demand better than anyone. During the 7 good years, supply was high, so the price of grain was low. Grain was cheap. It was almost worthless because there was so much of it. Joseph was buying or taxing the asset when it was undervalued. He was accumulating cheap assets. He knew that in 7 years, the supply would drop to 0. And when supply hits 0, demand becomes infinite. The value of that stored grain would skyrocket. He wasn't just saving food, he was cornering the market. This is the definition of buy low, sell high, played out on a geopolitical scale. But the execution wasn't easy. Imagine the public pushback. Why are you taking our grain? Joseph, look, there is plenty. You are a fiat. The disciplined investor always looks crazy to the consumer during a bull market. When everyone is buying NFTs and meme coins, the Joseph investor is boring. He is buying land. He is buying blue chip stocks. He is stacking cash. He looks conservative and outdated. Until the bubble bursts, the text says Joseph gathered corn as the sand of the sea. Very much, until he left numbering, for it was without number. He stopped counting. He reached a level of abundance where the spreadsheet broke. This is the goal of the Joseph protocol, to reach a critical mass of savings where the compound interest takes over and the wealth begins to multiply on its own. So, the question for you in this block is, what is your fifth? Are you living on 100% of your income? If you are fragile. You are one famine away from slavery. To walk in the anointing of Joseph, you must restructure your life to live on 80%, so you can store the 20%. It requires sacrifice today for sovereignty tomorrow. But Joseph's plan wasn't just about hoarding. There was a specific danger he had to avoid. Storing wealth makes you a target. And as the 7 years of plenty came to an end, the atmosphere shifted. The clouds disappeared. The Nile receded. The first crop failed. And suddenly, the party stopped. The mood in Egypt turned from celebration to panic. In the next section, we are going to watch the crash happen. We will see what happens to the people who didn't save, and we will analyze the transfer of wealth. This is the controversial part where Joseph ends up buying the entire country land, cattle, and people for Pharaoh. Was it ethical? Was it ruthless, or was it the necessary cost of survival? We are about to enter the lean years and things are going to get ugly. Welcome back. We have arrived at the turning point of history. The 7 years of plenty are over. The party has ended. The music has stopped. And just as Joseph predicted, the famine begins. It didn't happen all at once. It started slowly, a mist rain, a low river, a poor harvest. But soon the reserves of the average family ran dry. The text says, and the famine was over all the face of the earth. This wasn't a local recession. It was a global depression. People from all surrounding nations, Canaan, Libya, Syria, began to flock to Egypt because Egypt was the only place with a surplus. This brings us to principle number 4. Wealth is never destroyed. It is merely transferred. During a crisis, money doesn't disappear. It moves from the hands of the unprepared to the hands of the prepared. We are about to witness the largest consolidation of wealth in human history. Scene 1, the cash crash. Genesis 47 tells us that there was no bread in all the land, and the land fainted by reason of the famine. The people came to Joseph and bought corn, and Joseph gathered up all the money that was found in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan. The money. Think about that. Every silver coin, every piece of currency, flowed out of the pockets of the consumers and into the treasury of Pharaoh. This teaches us that in a crisis, cash is king. Those who hold the liquidity, the grain, call the shots. Scene 2, the asset liquidation. A year passes. The people return to Joseph screaming, "Give us bread, for why should we die in thy presence?" for the money fails. Their savings accounts hit zero. Now, Joseph makes a pivot. He says, "Give your cattle and I will give you for your cattle if money fails." This is crucial. Cattle were the tractors and machinery of the ancient world. They were productive assets. The people were so desperate for survival, immediate consumption, that they traded their means of production, long-term wealth, for bread. This is exactly what happens in a modern recession. When people lose their jobs and savings, they sell their stocks at the bottom. They sell their houses at a loss. They liquidate their 401 kiloseconds just to pay the mortgage. They trade their future for their present. And who is on the other side of that trade? The Joseph investor, the one who has the bread cash reserves to buy the cattle assets at a deep discount. Scene 3. Total capitulation. Another year passes. The people return, broken. They say, "We have nothing left but our bodies and our lands. Buy us and our land for bread, and we and our land will be servants unto Pharaoh." This is the grim reality of debt and lack of preparation. The scripture says, "So Joseph bought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh, and the land became Pharaoh's." The independent landowners became tenants. They became employees of the state. They kept their lives, but they lost their sovereignty. Some critics look at this and say Joseph was ruthless. They call him a tyrant, but look closer. He didn't steal their land. They sold it voluntarily because they had no other choice. It was the consequence of their own consumption during the fat years. While Joseph was storing 20%, they were eating 100%. When winter came, the ant became the master, and the grasshopper became the servant. This is the harsh truth of the lean years. It exposes who is naked. The trap wasn't set by Joseph, the trap was set by their own lack of discipline. Today, this trap looks like credit card debt. It looks like buy now, pay later. It looks like having zero emergency fund. When the car breaks down or the layoff happens, you are forced to swipe the card. You are forced to sell your freedom for survival. Joseph's strategy reminds us that financial freedom is binary. You are either the one buying the land or you are the one selling it. There is no middle ground in a famine. But the story doesn't end with slavery. Joseph does something remarkable in the final act. He doesn't just leave them as slaves. He restructures the economy again. He gives them seed. He puts them back to work on the land, but now, under a new contract. He created a system that saved the biological lives of millions, even if it cost them their economic independence. As we prepare for the final block, we have to look at the result of this protocol. Joseph saved civilization. He preserved the lineage of the Messiah. But he also became a father to Pharaoh and a lord of all Egypt. He built a legacy that outlived the famine. In the final section, we will look at the legacy. What happened to Joseph at the end of his life? And most importantly, how do you apply this Joseph protocol today without becoming a heartless tycoon? We will reveal the spiritual key that kept Joseph humble despite owning the world. The conclusion of the matter is coming up next. Welcome to the final chapter of the Joseph protocol. We have journeyed from the pit of betrayal to the prison of obscurity, through the palace of influence, and into the command center of a global economic crisis. We have learned the math of the 20% savings rule and the brutal reality of wealth transfer during a famine. Joseph is now the undisputed master of Egypt's economy. But if we stop here, we miss the point. Because the goal of biblical wealth is not just accumulation. It is preservation and purpose. The famine that devastated Egypt also reached Canaan, the home of Joseph's brothers, the very men who sold him into slavery. They come to Egypt desperate, begging for food, bowing before the brother they thought was dead. This is the climax of the story. Joseph has the power to destroy them. He has the money, the army, and the leverage. But instead of revenge, he reveals the ultimate purpose of the protocol. He tells them in Genesis 45:7, "God sent me before you to preserve you a posterity in the earth, and to save your lives by a great deliverance." This is the why. Why did God allow Joseph to suffer? Why did God give him the financial wisdom? It wasn't so Joseph could wear gold chains and drive a fast chariot. It was so he could be the ark for his family. The purpose of wealth is to build a wall of protection around your lineage. Joseph doesn't just give them a bag of grain and send them home. He executes one final real estate transaction. He moves his entire family, his father, his brothers, their wives and children to the land of Goshen. Goshen wasn't a slum. Scripture describes it as the best of the land. While the rest of the world was starving and selling their freedom, Joseph's family was settled in the most fertile, protected region of the empire, eating the fat of the land. This is the definition of generational wealth. Because one man paid the price of discipline in the dungeon, 70 members of his family lived like kings during a depression. This is your mandate. You are not saving money just to buy a Lamborghini. You are saving to build a Goshen for your children and your grandchildren. You are building a financial fortress so that when the economy crashes, your family doesn't have to sell their soul to survive. You are positioning yourself to be the lender, not the borrower, the head, and not the tail. But there is one final secret to Joseph's success that we must decode. It is the only reason the power didn't corrupt him. Lord Acton famously said, "Power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely." Joseph had absolute financial power, yet he remained a servant of God. How? The answer is in his first words to Pharaoh. When Pharaoh said, "I hear you can interpret dreams," Joseph replied, "It is not in me. God shall give Pharaoh an answer of peace." Radical humility. He deflected the glory. He acknowledged that he was not the source, he was merely the channel. The moment you start thinking asterisk, you asterisk are the genius behind your wealth at asterisk. Your asterisk trading strategy or asterisk your asterisk hard work is the source, you are in danger. Nebuchadnezzar thought that way and ended up eating grass like an animal. Joseph knew he was a steward. The grain belonged to Pharaoh. The wisdom belonged to God. He held everything loosely. This is the Joseph protocol. 1. Asterisk vision. Asterisk seeing the cycle before it happens. 2. Asterisk discipline. Asterisk living on less than you earn, the 80/20 rule. 3. Asterisk execution. Asterisk storing the surplus in secure vessels. 4. Asterisk liquidity. Asterisk having the cash to buy assets when the market crashes. 5. Asterisk purpose. Asterisk using the wealth to save your family and bless the world. The famine is coming. It might be a global recession, or it might be a personal crisis. The economic cycles have not changed in 4,000 years. The question is not will the lean years come. The question is who will you be when they arrive? Will you be the desperate Egyptian selling your freedom for a loaf of bread? Or will you be the Joseph, opening the storehouse to feed the nations? The choice is yours. The pit is behind you. The palace is waiting, but you must do the work. If this series has opened your eyes to the strategic depth of the Bible, if you are ready to stop playing small and start managing resources like a kingdom ruler, I need you to do 2 things. First, subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification bell. We are building a community of high-level stewards, and you cannot afford to miss the next briefing. Second, I want to know where you are in your journey right now. Look at the pinned comment below. Are you in the asterisk pit, asterisk struggling, the asterisk prison, asterisk preparing, saving, or the asterisk palace, asterisk managing, investing? Be honest, there is no shame in the pit, only shame in staying there. Comment below, and let's start the conversation. The world is waiting for the manifestation of the sons of God who know how to manage the grain. Go build your Goshen. Class dismissed.